This group of scammers are in New Delhi, and as for the scam, well, I'll let them introduce it themselves.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, how are you doing today?
Who's calling, please?
This side Mark Anderson. I'm calling you from Windows. This call is regarding your computer, ma'am.
Yes, it's the old classic tech support scam, but this time there's going to be a bit of a difference because this one is going to get raided by the police. These are the offices of DK Business Patron. The business is in the west side of central Delhi near the metro stop of Ramesh Nagar. The DK is Deepak Kumar, the owner of the business, but more about him in just a moment. And in this scam, I was able to call my friend Carl Rock, who has a drone and was able to take some of these shots at night when the scams were running. Do check out Carl's version of this video, there's a link in the description. But the most interesting thing about DK Business Patron was that they had multiple CCTV cameras. In fact, there were 4 DV recorders. They used these cameras for their own security, but it would lead to their undoing. But let's start with their scam. What exactly did they get up to when they called people? Well, courtesy of those cameras, we can both see and hear exactly what they did. And some scammers were much more bullying than others.
How many times did you have to be told, I am not turning the computer on?
Why? What happened, bud?
Nothing happened to it, and nothing's going to happen to it.
Sir, you will lose your computer. Because,
What do you mean I'll lose the computer?
sir, your computer security services are not working. Around 60% of security services are not working, and day by day the number will increase. 60 to 70, 70 to 80, and when it reach 100, you will lose your computer. You can't be able to use your computer. You will not able to use your computer.
So through a series of threats like this one and outright lies, they persuade people that their computers need to be fixed. The scam itself was very scripted. You could see some of these scripts sitting on some of their desks, and it was of course all about getting money. The agents were told not to use the name of Microsoft, but several of them did this anyway. I'll show you in a second. But more importantly, if they were challenged on where they were, they would have to say not India, but an address in New York. And of course, if they got access to the victims' computers, they would show them the old stopped services trick. Every computer will have stopped services. These scammers, however, say that they're stopped because of hackers or viruses. And they're going to fix those stopped services for a fee, but they won't admit that up front.
So I will just showing you what are the services are suspended in your computer.
You want me to pay for something, don't you?
No, sir, it's free of cost.
It's free?
It's free of cost.
What's that?
Don't be afraid. It's free of cost. Be at your computer.
I didn't understand that.
If someone doesn't understand you, hand the headset to your neighbour.
Yeah, hello?
Hello.
Yeah, sir, your call has been transferred. This side Rachel. Actually, sir, this is the authorized computer service center, and even I have your computer license ID so that you can verify it, because only the authorized computer service center has the computer license ID of their customers.
And of course they don't know any license IDs. Had they tried to persuade their victims of their legitimacy, they would just get them to run the ASSOC command and look at the very bottom of the listing. These IDs are always the same and has nothing to do with computer license.
So you can verify it. So can you please just be at the computer for a moment?
Is there someone there that can talk English?
Yes.
But getting a fluent English speaker here was always going to be difficult.
I ask you a question if you're registered with the Better Business Bureau.
She asks the guy beside her.
Yes, sir, yes.
And what's
Sir, of course, with
what's your company's full name?
What? It's Windows Microsoft, sir. It's Windows Microsoft Service Center.
Because claiming to be Windows Microsoft makes you sound so much more legitimate than Microsoft Windows. But thankfully, most people knew that this whole thing is a scam.
Hello.
Hi, sir. My name is Grace. I'm calling you from Windows Technical Support. How are you doing today?
I can't hear you. Can you repeat that?
Windows Technical Support. I'm calling you from Windows. So
Windows.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you see out the window? Is that what you're asking me? I can't hear you very good.
Windows Technical Support.
Okay, so you're looking out your window.
We have received an error report from your computer.
What?
So can you switch on your computer? Bye. Go to hell. Okay,
But perhaps the most surprising thing about this whole business was the fact that there was a night and a day operation. The day operation did genuine work. They did help other businesses set up on Amazon for reselling their products, and they seemed to have some sort of relationship with DirecTV. But all of this changed in the evening time. Around about 8 or 9 local time, a different group of people would enter the building, but use the same PCs that had been used for genuine purposes earlier in the day. But I wanted to know exactly how much money they were making on these scams. But they kept a careful note of this on spreadsheets, so I was able to see exactly how much they made. They had been running the scam for over 2 years, and in that time they'd acquired over 3,000 victims. The average payment was about $500, and the top payment was well over $5,000 from one victim. That meant that they defrauded more than $800,000 in 2 years. But the victims wouldn't make these payments directly to DK Business Patron. They had set up a couple of shell companies in the USA so that they could handle both card payments and checks. Here we're going to be watching one scammer and his screen at the same time. This is a blown up version of the screen on the right hand side, and you can watch and track exactly what he's doing. The victim's name is Cindy.
Okay, so ma'am, note down this is the name, High Tech 365 LLC. That's the company name, and please note it down. And right under, High Tech 365 LLC.
Okay. 365 LLC at 400.
400 Rella Boulevard. That's my mailing address.
Okay.
The address is for a company called iPostal One, which is a digital mailbox service. Amongst other things, they will receive checks in the post and forward them to the company who need to receive them. It's an excellent way of receiving checks from victims without having to be in the same country. Their other shell company is called Connect to Home. Bizarrely, the word connect is spelt wrongly. And at the time of this video going live, the Connect to Home website is still available, unlike the High Tech 365, which got taken down as soon as the police raided the offices. However, even if these get taken down, you can always see the contents on the Wayback Machine. I've left links in the description. The other company name, Connect to Home, had exactly the same address, but just a different suite number.
New York, and what's the zip code? 10901?
Correct.
Okay. And I'll send you the bill, $162.99.
Right.
The scammers relied on a bit of technobabble to make convincing sounding diagnosis, but none of the faults were ever real. But very occasionally, a scammer would have a bit of conscience.
Hello?
Yeah.
Barbara, how you doing?
Okay.
Okay, so ma'am, this is Stephen Bracewell, and I'm calling you from a Windows Microsoft. Okay? Ma'am? Yes, your computer guy, ma'am. From Windows Microsoft.
I don't have a computer, okay?
You don't have computer?
No.
How old are you, ma'am?
88.
88. Okay, I understand, but you sounds like you're very young.
I don't have a computer and I don't have a cell phone, okay? That's it.
I understand, ma'am. Bye bye. Thank you. बॉस सर बहुत बुढ़िया है सर. इससे चेक लिखवा लेते ना, मुझे बहुत दया आती. तो आवाज भी कड़क थी बहुत. How old are you? 88.
So when scammers say that their victims sound so young, this is the truth behind what they really think. But who runs this organisation? The answer is very easy because his name is all over the business. This person is called Deepak Kumar, and he, together with his sister Pooja, are the directors of this company. And he knows exactly what goes on. Here he is during one of those night shifts collecting water bottles to make sure that all of his scammers are well watered. It's thirsty work scamming elderly people in the USA at 5 in the morning Indian time. But this channel isn't just about showing what scammers do, it's also here to try and bring down some of these scammers, and that's where I needed the help of a wider team. Even to get this footage, including some of the audio, I needed help from my friend Midnight. Check out his version of the video, it's in the description. But I really wanted to see if there was anything that could be done for all the people who had lost money to these fake companies. And for that, I needed the police in Delhi to look carefully into DK Business Patron and see what they were really up to at nights. And it is absolutely essential that the police gather their own evidence independently. I've had run-ins with scammers before, like this lot. And when you can hire very expensive lawyers who will argue things like YouTube videos can be faked, and this is absolutely true, or indeed that AI or IO, as in these court documents, could have faked it, and the police certainly aren't going to have the resources to forensically examine videos. And that's why the police have to gather their own evidence. I needed the assistance of someone who can liaise directly with the Delhi police. And that's where I needed my friend Sven. Sven has his own YouTube channel. Again, he has a video, it's linked in the description, and he was able to liaise with the Delhi police to try and get a raid conducted. Videos are not enough for the police, they need a statement from victims to say that money has been stolen, so I managed to get a few of these victims to write directly to the police. And a few painful weeks later, we were told that indeed a raid would be conducted. But on the day of the raid, things got a little bit strange. The team who would normally cold call pretending to be Microsoft were instead doing the legitimate work which normally happened during the day. A number of the PCs which had been used for scamming were strangely being reset. But most strangely of all, the cameras which we'd been able to watch for months at this point, the ones covering the scam floors, strangely those cameras seemed to be switched off. And then the people who would normally scam during the night were let go much earlier than normal. In fact, they'd all vacated the building around 30 minutes before the raid actually happened. There is no doubt that someone knew exactly what was about to happen. So when the raid started about 30 minutes later, we could only see the outside cameras, and therefore that's all the scammers could see as well. So when the lead officer marched up to the gates of DK Business Patron, initially the doors weren't even open for them. Instead, there was a flurry of activity at the top of the stairs. There were people running around with laptops, and eventually the guard just peered down to see who was knocking on the door. Indeed, it was a full 3 minutes before the police were actually allowed access to the building. You have to wonder what this delay was all about. Perhaps they weren't ready. But when they did eventually gain access to the building, the lead investigator ran up the stairs, and the first thing he did was that he seemed to slap the guard. Followed by another guy in a green shirt who did exactly the same. But what the scammers didn't bank on was our ability to get audio. None of these cameras actually support audio, but thanks to Midnight's ingenuity, every single telephone in the building can be turned into a listening device, and this is what we heard as they attempted to figure out what to do before the police came in. And a little later, whenever the police asked the guard why he didn't open the door immediately, the guard explains that he had to have a pee. I guess whenever the police are knocking on your door, it is very important to have that pee before you open it. There's still a lot more to be told about this story. I haven't even mentioned the time whenever Carl Rock went to film outside and he was nearly caught by the people watching him. We also sent another YouTuber actually inside these scam offices, and with a GoPro in his hand, he managed to film himself together with the scammers. Pretty brave or pretty stupid, you can decide. Please check the links in the description if you'd like to see the videos from all the people that helped me. If you're a patron of mine, you can also see some additional footage, like whenever I called the company to try and get a refund for one of their victims. You can find out what they said to me. But I have a lot of reasons to doubt whether the police will be able to find anything that will make charges stick to DK Business Patron. Since the CCTV was switched off, Midnight managed to capture this extraordinary footage from one of the webcams. We've obviously blanked out the police officers' faces, but it shows the types of excuses that this business were trying to use. And given that they had plenty of legitimate work that they could point the police officers to, I've no doubt that this raid will be a bit of a whitewash. And as Deepak brought in tea for all of the police in his offices, I suspect that there won't be enough evidence left for any charges to stick. So I decided to contact Deepak myself to try and get his version of exactly what went on in his offices. I have left a link in the description to the entire unedited version of this, but here's one of the highlights.
See, one thing that is there, why I got into this situational is because the people who were working in the leisure business, I had no money to pay them. They would have they could have lost their job. They could have done all those left the job. But I did not ask them to leave the job. To survive that, I got the money to pay the genuine things. I did the ungenuine things. So that's something which is just a survival.
So that's his excuse. His business might have folded had he not run a scam process during the time of the pandemic. I highly doubt whether this admission of guilt will really make any difference to the police. But I hope that anyone who does even genuine business with DK will have a look at the relationship with this company. And if you think you've been scammed by one of the two shell companies that they operate, their details are on screen, please go to your bank and request a chargeback for fraud. Not only will you get your money back, but DK Business Patron will end up footing a large fine. In a last gasp attempt to stop me from publishing this video, Deepak emailed me to say that he'd refunded a couple of people. But I had asked him to proactively refund everyone that he possibly could instead of these two people who I believed had complained. After the police do their thing, there's likely to be future updates to this video, so it's important to both subscribe and click on that notify icon on the bottom right to make sure you get any updates. And if you like my fight against scammers, there's a few ways you can support me. My Patreon page is on screen and it's in the description, and through it you can get extra content and even services like live chats. Alternatively, there's a way of keeping me up at nights trying to track down scammers, and that's through buying me a coffee. There's a link here as well. I comment regularly on scams and scammers on Twitter. I'm Jim Browning11 there. And lastly, I do like to read your comments on these videos. I do reply when I can, and those comments do help publicise this video and make it available to other people who may not even have heard of these scams. So finally, thank you for watching.